So why should we commission? What is commissioning all about? Well, when you think about UVC, it's really all about making sure we protect our workers from the effects of exposure to UVC. So we might consider two types of installations of UVC. There are those where we put in basically bare lamps into a room, and this is to give surface disinfection so that any viruses that attach themselves to surfaces are eliminated and disabled. And there's the installations where we have upper air, where the air itself is circulating in the room. It goes up into the upper part of the room, becomes disinfected, and then continues to circulate. But the first thing we do when we go into an installation is to put our irradiance meter, and I'll talk a little bit more about the types of meters we use later on. But we put our radiance meter on a tripod, on a little bracket, point it towards the luminaire, raise the tripod so that it's exactly opposite the center of the luminaire, place it, say, a couple of meters away, and then we can take a reading. So when it comes to measuring safety, we can then turn to our standard, and the reference standard here is ISO 15858. And this talks about the safety limits that we have on the dose in terms of exposure to people. So I talked a little bit about reflection and the fact that obviously if you've got luminaires that are up at the top part of the ceiling, at some point the UV is going to be reflected off the ceiling or off the upper part of the walls. So again, it's important to understand if you're going in and commissioning and getting readings, particularly if your horizontal reading is higher than you're expecting. It may be because of something to do with the reflection of the ceiling surfaces itself. So this is really where one of the big differences comes between taking our UVC measurements and our light measurements. If you look at one of the lighting standards, you'll see that we're taking readings on a grid of points, and the standard will tell you how many points to take in that grid, what the spacing of that grid is. And that's because we're after the average. With UVC, we're after the maximum. So it doesn't make any sense to take measurements over a whole grid of points because we're not going to average them. What we're interested in is to find where the maximum value is occurring. So the other things that we do when we're going out and commissioning is also doing some other visual checks. And again, these are things that we've learned by going out and looking at installations. So for example, is there anything that's in the ceiling that may be affected by long-term exposure? And then finally, again, and this is mentioned in the ISO standard, you should go back and make regular checks on the performance. So make sure that you're getting the same performance that you expected at the initial stage throughout life, and in particular if anything has changed in the environment. So when you go back in, if you find that the desk arrangements have changed, then it's worth taking another set of readings with the new desk position, because remember we said that was one of the areas of focus that we wanted to concentrate on.